Hello, it is I, Andrine, Jewish American Priestess, here tonight with another Hebrew reading. I'm going to light up a few candles for us as we come into the very darkest time of the year. Although we have a full moon, this is the thing, you know, we're heading into the darkness, but we have this full moon that is visiting us, and we have the planet Mars is in retrograde right now, which means some things about, I don't know, Mars stuff. But the other thing is, during the full moon, the moon will eclipse Mars, which is to say it will go occult. It will become hidden for a period of time on the night of the 7th here in the United States anyway, and then it will come out from behind the moon. And so Mars is pretty bright. It's at the closest to the Earth that it is in its cycle right now. So there's a lot of conjunctions happening, and I don't know what that means astrologically, but I'm guessing it's important because a lot of weird stuff is happening. At least in my life, a lot of not particularly fun stuff is going on. But here we are. I'm going to pull out some tarot cards today, again from the Mythologia Fennica Tarot deck, which is of the Kalevala stories from Finland. I'm going to pull out 3 cards today, so let's see who wants to come, and then we'll do some, you know, not quite as elaborate readings as I've been doing, but some readings. There's one. We'll do a past, present, future or something like that. That'll be with the Hebrunes. So 2 and one more. One more, please. This one. This one. Okay. All right. We have 3 different cards, and I'm gonna set this deck over here. Let's take a look at them, and then you get to choose which one speaks to you today. So the first one that's coming up is the Lass of Tuonela. And you can see that she is in some kind of boat, and there's a swan off in the distance there. The Lass of Tuonela. We'll read a little bit about her in the reading. The second card is the Mother of Fire. And for card number 3, we have the Kakkiainen. So those are interesting little guys. So pick which one resonates for you today, and we'll put the timestamps down below, and you can see what your reading is for today. We'll see you there. For those of you who chose the Lass of Tuonela, I wasn't going to read the whole story, but it's so interesting. I'm just going to read it. Okay, so it's the 13th card in the tarot, which loosely is affiliated with, is that right, 13? Yes, with the Death card in the traditional tarot. And so the keywords are death, transformation, changes, transitions to a new stage of life, old giving way to new, being freed from old shackles, outward changes, fundamental change, and rebirth. So the Lass of Tuonela's purpose is to ferry the dead souls over the black river of Tuonela to the island of Manala with her karpaso, a boat with a figurehead shaped like a moose's head. You can't see that in this version of it, but fortunately the cover of the book shows the moose head there. You can see the more full-size painting there. So here she is ferrying across the river of Tuonela. She is the farrier, the mist maid traveling between two worlds. She is known as the shut-eye of Ulapala, which refers to the blindness which is common in the land of the dead. Unlike the border between dreams and the waking world is fickle, so is sometimes the border between the lands of the living and the dead. The island of the dead was shrouded in mist and twilight, and a great fire, the smoke of which surrounded the isle, was said to burn eternally in the middle of it. When Wainamoinen came to Tuonela to search for his words of power, he called to the lass to come ferry him across the river, but the girl wouldn't take anyone living on his boat, so Wainamoinen tried to deceive her, but to no avail. When he said he had been killed with a sword, the lass asked why he wasn't blood-stained. When he said he had drowned, the lass asked why he wasn't wet. And when he said he was burned to death, the lass asked why his beard hadn't been singed off. Finally, Wainamoinen gave up and confessed that he was after the words that belonged to someone who was already in the land of the dead. So that she agreed to take him over the river, but warned him he would not be able to get the words and he would never be able to return, because the dead do not suffer the living in their own realm. In Tuonela, Wainamoinen was given an uncomfortable bed of snakes to rest upon, while the dead weaved nets across the river to prevent him from escaping. But Wainamoinen couldn't sleep, for he sensed his doom was at hand, and he transformed himself into a snake and managed to slither between the nets. After his narrow escape, he warned everyone not to ever go to Tuonela as he had done. The swan that swam in the river of Tuonela, and which Lemminkainen had tried unsuccessfully to shoot, was a soul bird that couldn't be killed. The soul bird refers to an old belief that a person's soul transforms into a bird upon death and leaves the body with the last breath. This is why dead bodies' mouths were often open. The lass of Tuonela reminds us of our own mortality, but also of the fact that there is no final death, that life doesn't end, and we carry on as the soul bird, although our worldly journey comes to an end. Lemminkainen didn't stay in the river either, but was brought up back to life by his mother. So it's about recognizing one's own mortality. You might be able to learn to live in a different way. Death is about renewal. The old dies and vanishes to make room for the new. The lass of Tuonela doesn't usually point at an actual death, but to changes on a physical level of not letting go of old things, to relinquishing, and most importantly, to a new beginning. There are moments in life when it is meant to turn over a new leaf, to let everything that has become obsolete to die away. This releases one from old ties and renews life in an essential way. The process becomes painful only when opposed. By accepting change and the fact that life itself is change, one can become free from the torments and fears caused by it. Dare to let go of that which is leaving and be open to that which is coming to its place. The lass of Tuonela urges us to accept the changes that happen in our lives as part of infinity. Matter never disappears, it only changes form. The true nature of life is a constant state of change. So that's the short story of the lass of Tuonela. And I'm going to set the card right here, and hopefully it will stay for us. And we'll pull out 3 Hebrunes today to just take a look at what has been, what is, and what will be coming. I'll just reach into my little basket here. I'm going to pull out. The first one is going to be the center, I think, what the present is. The second one will be the past. And the third will be the future. All right. So we have what's come recently in the past is the letter Resh, Resh is a beginning. It's the first. It means head, so it's like the word Rosh Hashanah or Rosh Chodesh. It speaks about a new beginning, and Resh is it's said to look like a head that is being bowed. So somebody's having a little humility here, and it corresponds to the head in the body. It has the binary foundation of seed and barrenness. So it is the beginning of a thing, as if some seed was planted. And it has a correspondence with the planet Mercury in space. It rules over the planet Mercury, which is about communication. Since the planet Mercury goes around the sun fastest of all the planets in our solar system, it says to have a lot of connection and speed with the other planets. So it has the ability to talk to them very quickly and get news and disseminate news. It is, in my reading of it, affiliated with the matriarch Rachel, because Rachel starts with the Resh, but also because of the humility, because she struggled with barrenness, because she was unable to give birth to children for many, many years before finally she was able to conceive. And so I think of it as corresponding to Rachel, our matriarch. And it is, for me, it corresponds to the Tower card. Because it's about the ending, because it's about a new beginning. So the Tower is about endings and beginnings, similar to the Lass of Tuonela. It has to do with something coming crashing down and losing something, and then from there being able to start again. So it's about something that's happened in the recent past has been a new beginning. Some kind of thing has begun that has just come before now. And our current state of affairs is the letter Vav. And Vav is a connection. It's about being rooted in the earth, but reaching up to the heavens. So this connection between heaven and earth, connection between the divine and the human, possibly connection between life and death. It can have to do with those things. Vav corresponds to the number 6 in Gematria, so it corresponds to the 6th day of creation, when creation was finished, but the divine had not yet rested. So it has something to do with some sort of completion or coming to nearer the end of a thing. So we had this new seed in the recent past, and now we're coming to a near completion. It is connected to the foundation of hearing. So maybe we're hearing some things, we're listening for guidance at this time. It corresponds to the tarot card, the Lovers, in my interpretation of it, because it is about connection. It's about connection with the divine and also with another person, possibly. I mean, connection is connection, and as far as I'm concerned, if one is connected with another person, that is a connection with the divine. So that's what's going on right now, this desire for or attempt for connection. It is literally the word "and" in Hebrew, so it's just about connecting things together. The first time it shows up in Torah, it's the phrase "heaven and earth" in the book Bereshit, which has the resh in it. Beresh means in the beginning. So it does have to do with that connection between heaven and earth, between the divine and human, between the sky and the earth. It is one of the 12 single letters in the Sefer Yetzirah, Book of Creation. Like I said, it has a connection with the foundation of hearing, and something to do with the tribe of Issachar. And I don't know a whole lot about the tribe of Issachar. I'm going to have to look that up to find out more about what their affiliations are. But Vav is affiliated with that. It is said to be a peg or a hook. In the Proto-Hebrew, it looks like more like a peg, and it was used to fashion with gold or silver to hold together the veils of the Holy of Holies in the Mishkan as the Israelites traveled through the desert. So it has something to do with that divine connection, about being a holy connector between things that are essential in the building of a structure that is dedicated to the divine. So that's what's going on now. We have this connection piece that's happening in our present. And in our future position, we have the letter Pei. And the letter Pei is a mouth. It is, again, about communication, like the Resh is about communication with the planet Mercury involved. Pei is about communication from the divine and with the divine. It is said to be the mouth of the divine, speaking the universe into existence. It corresponds to the number 80, which is the ultimate manifestation of the number 8, 8 being the number that represents infinity. It's also the binary foundation of grace and ugliness. So with this understanding that the divine used words to create the universe, we also have the ability to create our reality as we speak. And we have to concentrate on using words that are not ugly, words that are blessing rather than curse. For me, the letter Pei corresponds to the matriarch Leah. So we have Rachel here in the past and Leah here in the future. She was the one who named all of her children as they were born, and spoke out gratitude and blessings in many a way, as she was able to conceive in a way that Rachel had not been. She had that ability to embody the binary of grace and ugliness. It was said that Leah had poor eyes, and we don't know whether that meant poor eyesight or something was wrong with her eyes, so that she was not as beautiful as Rachel, but she still was a good communicator and one who attempted to bring beauty into the world, especially through the names of her children. And as I see it, the Pei corresponds to the tarot card of the Hierophant, because it is a mouthpiece for the divine. So the Hierophant is seen to be a teacher, or someone who is maybe a spiritual teacher. And so Pei, being that mouthpiece for the divine, is one who communicates the words of divinity, words of wisdom. So that's what's coming up in the future, this ability to create our world as we speak it, and the ability to speak, to hear the speech of the divine as it comes to us, and possibly teach something to those who are listening. So as we pull these three together, we've got Resh coming in from the past with this binary foundation of seed and barrenness, something that was planted, and maybe something planted in humility with the Resh, the beginning of a new thing. So the Rosh, the head of a new thing. And we're in this time right now of connection with the Vav, trying to remain connected to this earth, maybe traveling between worlds, like the last of Tuonela. We're traveling between, but we're trying to remain connected to this realm as we reach for the next, maybe connected to earth as we reach toward divinity. Coming to the nearer the end of a thing is the number 6, as we are almost through the number of days of creation. And then we move into the infinite. We move into this infinite place where we have communication with and toward the divine. So those of you who are rowing your boat and coming through a transition stage, even if it feels like we've got some barrenness here, we've had a beginning. We're working on connecting right now, staying connected with this world as we move to the next, and we're heading toward the infinite, the unknown, perhaps, something that is unknown and unseen, and that will bring us to the other side as we are ferried across whatever transition we're in with the maid of Lass of Tuonela. And that was your reading for today. We'll see you next time. Right, for those of you who chose the Mother of Fire, this is the card in the Mythologia Fennica that corresponds loosely to the Queen of Wands. The Mother of Fire in the Kalevala tradition is, she's a haltia, which is to say a spirit that is the spirit of the hearth. She's the Mother of Fire. She lives in the stove's ashes and behind the oven. She's like a red fire and appears sometimes as a figure in the hearth's flames. The Mother of Fire is female, and it could also live in any other fireplace of any building or of the residence. So its purpose is to protect the fire and prevent it from spreading. It could, for example, wake up the inhabitants to warn them if a fire was about to break out in the home. The Mother of Fire also appeared the moment that a fire was ignited in the hearth. So it would come if a campfire was burned at the site before the actual houses were built. And it was believed that the first person to set the fire would become the house's haltia upon their death. And so it was carefully considered who got to do it. This was to ensure that the house would get the best possible haltia. Whereas the fire haltia lived all around the house, the hearth rather, the house haltia may have had its own room where it resided. Both haltias are bringers of good fortune, so people wanted to take them with them when they moved to a new place. So the fire haltia is brought along by taking ash from 3 different spots in the old hearth and then spreading them into the new one before igniting the first fire. The house haltia is made to follow by digging up a bit of dirt under the corner of a house or under all 4 corners of the haltia's room, and then taking that to a new homeowner's, putting it in the corner of a new home. Fire haltias are protective and benevolent if they are respected, and the fire is fed with good wood. But if trash or sewage was cast into the fire, or the fire was cursed, the fire haltia could become so enraged that it burned the whole house down. The worship of fire has its roots all the way going back to the primitive ages, when everything in nature was anthropomorphized and full of spirits. Fire and hearth are sacred, and the visitors are always seated in the best place next to them. Tales and experiences are exchanged around the fire, and gazing into it concentrated the community's energies inward, thus strengthening the feeling of togetherness. Today, this tradition has been replaced with electronics, which is not ideal. So the mother of fire is the Hearth-Haltia, and she represents, care and concern, and some level, the soul of the home. So let's do a reading for you with the Hebrunes, for those of you who chose the Mother of Fire here today. We'll set her up right here by the fire, and so you can protect this for us. Pick out 3 Hebrunes today from my basket of tiles, and we'll see what our past, present, future is. I'm going to start with the current state of affairs, and then we'll move to past and then to future. So the central Hebrew today is the letter Zayin. Our past is the letter Beit. And our future is the letter Yud. Okay. So start with what just came before. So what came before the recent past is the letter Beit, and Beit is a house, a bait, and it represents wherever we dwell. So it's perfect for the fire haltia, because it, like I said, you can take this with you wherever you go, whatever your home is. The Beit is the place where we dwell, so it can be considered a home. It can be considered like a study hall or a place of worship, or in fact just one's body where you dwell. Wherever it is that you find yourself can be a bait. And the Beit is an important, place, because it's where we live. It's about life. It has the binary foundation of life and death in the Sefer Yetzirah. So that continuum between life and death is the foundation over which Beit rules. It is also having to do with Shabbat in time. So on some level it has to do with rest, because Shabbat is the day of rest. And where do we rest? We rest in our homes. In fact, Shabbat seems to be made up of 2 roots, shev and bait, which means to rest in the house. So resting is about staying home and being, observing that sacred act of rest. Beit also has to do with the mouth and the body. And for me, I think of it as corresponding to the matriarch Sarah, because Sarah was a person who made the home wherever she was, and she welcomed many guests into her home in the stories of the Torah. So I think of Beit as corresponding to the matriarch Sarah. And in my interpretation of the tarot cards and how they correspond, it corresponds to the moon in the moon card. And why does it correspond to the moon card? Because for me, like, you can see the moon from wherever you put your home. That's one of the constants of our planet, is that no matter where you lay your head, there is the moon. It is the transformation of life and death, and the mouth and the body, and it is the second letter in the alphabet, but it is the first letter in the Torah. So it starts the word Bereshit. In the beginning. It means like in, and it means of, and it means to, and it means within. So it has all these different connotations about inness. It is in the Paleo Hebrew, it looks like a square spiral, like the floor plan of a home. So, yeah, it feels like it's connected to the moon because of the deep mystery, the deep to home, and it is always above the home wherever we go. And that's come right before here. We've got some kind of house, some kind of home, some kind of maybe a beginning because of the Bereshit, and some kind of rest that has needed to be taken, maybe a time of rest in the home. And what brings us into this current state of Zayin. And Zayin is about power. It is a sword or a scepter. And sometimes it's seen also as a lightning bolt. So it's about sovereignty, and it's about power. Yeah, just some kind of power. It is also the number 7 in Gematria, so it corresponds to the 7th day, which is Shabbat. So here we have Beit governing over Shabbat, and Zayin being the seventh day is also Shabbat. And it's said to be representative of the Shabbat bride. It has the number 7, which has all these magical qualities to it. So there's something magical about the Zayin. The 7 days of creation, the 7 weeks of the Omer between Passover and Shavuot, the 7 lower Sefirot in the Tree of Life, the Shemitah, which is a year of rest every 7 years, and the 7 days for Passover and Sukkot, the idea that the bride circles the groom 7 times during a wedding ceremony, and there are 7 different blessings, the Sheva Brachot, given in a marriage ceremony. And also, if you think about it, Joshua circled Jericho 7 times before the walls fell. So there is all this magical connotations with the number 7. It is one of the 12 single letters in the Sefer Yetzirah, and it corresponds to the tribe of Zebulun, which is the tribe that corresponds to business or trade. So something about power is up right now. And for me, and it corresponds to the tarot card, the Emperor, in my interpretation of it, because the Emperor is about power and sovereignty and being structure and authority. So that's what's up right now. We've got some kind of power, and there's a lot of power in fire, and maybe that's what the Mother Fire is saying here. We've got this lightning, this ability to create fire with magic from the sky, basically. And that brings us to our future, which is the letter Yud. And the letter Yud is it's the smallest of all the letters, but it contains this huge amount within it. It is the single point, like an atom, like the building block of the universe, or like a seed or a sperm that you might plant to grow everything that's going to come out of it, like a spark. I mean, if we're talking about fire here, it's like that tiny spark that starts everything going. It has to do with sexuality in the foundations in Sefer Yetzirah, and it is, it's like a little dot, like a little apostrophe or a comma or some kind of little jot. And it means hand, and so it has to do with action. The word yad, which is like yud, means hand. So it has to do with action in the world, doing something, making something, maybe some kind of artisanship or handiwork. It is the first letter of the divine name, the Yud He Vav He. So it has a small letter, but it is the beginning of divinity. And it also is the beginning of every other letter has a Yud in it. It starts with a Yud. So it is that, like I said, the building block of that which makes up the universe. It is the number 10, so it's the ultimate manifestation of the number 1, or the unity of all things. But there's all these other 10s in the Torah. You'll have the 10 expressions of creation, the 10 Sephirot, the 10 plagues of Egypt, the 10 commandments. In the Sefer Yetzirah, the 10 inscriptions of the void. There's just all these 10s in Jewish tradition. And it is, for me, it corresponds to the traditional tarot card of the Fool, because it's about beginning, it's about seed, it's about innocence and trust and opening something new. So that's what's coming up in the future, is this new beginning. After we've had this period of being at home and resting, about creating a hearth, about sitting in our space and enjoying the rest that's available to us for Shabbat of some sort. And now we're coming into power. We're coming into this ability to have power in our lives, to have our own sovereignty, to harness the power possibly of our own fire. Our own inner fire has come to the present, and in the future we'll be moving forward to manifest with our seed, with our spark, and maybe spreading that flame of inspiration that we've got going out into the world. Because the Mother of Fire is about comfort, but it's also about being creative. It is this creative force, this passion that's happening. It's a spiritual center. I mean, the fire represents something very spiritual. There's warmth and caring and contentment for sure, but also just like this deep passion and maybe compassion that has grown and is here to protect and also spread that love, that passion, that fire out into the world. So for those of you who chose the Mother of Fire, that has been your reading for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you here next time. For those of you who chose the Kakkiainen, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Kakkiainen, that loosely corresponds to the traditional tarot card, the Seven of Swords. These guys are really interesting. I'm going to read you their story because I don't think I can paraphrase it appropriately. So Kakkiainens are tiny, obscure creatures, a kind of minuscule ghost. They aren't really dangerous, but they can cause all sorts of trouble and inconvenience. Usually, they lingered around churchyards and funeral processions. If a horse was pulling the coffin halted next to a graveyard, the Kakkiainens could climb on the sleigh, and it would become too heavy for the horse to pull. Kakkiainens were like tiny poltergeists that delighted in causing difficulties and disturbances. Uncertainty made them go wild, and they attracted more of their kind. The best way to get rid of a Kakkiainen was to be direct and frank. Folklore also advises that it's important to check one's house for Kakkiainens after visitors have left, especially if there has been some quarrel with the guests. Kakkiainen symbolizes that how some things bother a person and hamper their life. They flock to where the energy is unable to flow freely, where we can confine our feelings or refrain from taking the crucial steps even if we could. Old grudges and arguments are their sustenance. It is one's own choice whether to allow problematic thoughts and attributes to gather or to cast them out and change one's attitude. Making a big deal out of every problem and hanging on to small conflicts is to make perfect environment for Kakkiainen to run amok. They challenge to accept the fact that one cannot control life or other people too much, and that not everything will always go as planned. When Kakkiainens are around, even adults may be prone to fits more befitting of a toddler if they don't get their way. Scrutinizing other people's shortcomings and mistakes, condemnation of their beliefs, and overall stalking are also Kakkiainen's key characteristics. Will you concentrate to that which is positive and good in your life and relationships? Are you tolerant or condemning toward others and their actions? Can you forgive, or are you shackled by your grudges? So that's what a Kakkiainen is. And these, I think you can see that they're sort of laughing at the top. It says ra ha 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 ha, ra 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 ra. I don't know what that's how that's pronounced, but they're little pests, sort of how I see them, that kind of jump in and when there's conflict or when there's stagnation, they come in to pester you. So got a bunch of that going on right now in my life anyway. So there's the Kakkiainens, and we'll pull out 3 Hebrunes to illuminate what they're here about today. So we're going to do 3. We're going to do past, present, and future. I'm going to stir them up a little bit. And then I'm going to reach in, I'm going to pull out the present first, and then we're going to go past and then future. So our present, we've got the Ein. The past coming out, we have the Yud. And for the future, we have the Mem. Okay. So Ein is, let's see, we'll start with the past. Let's go with the past first. We'll go past, present, future. So the past is the Yud, and the Yud is the smallest of all the letters. It is the letter that is like that single point, that the atom that makes up all of the universe. It's like a little tiny seed. But I think of it in conjunction with this card. It's like that little, maybe that little thorn, that little impetus that caused some sort of issue, some sort of problem. There was some little tiny thing that just, invited in maybe a crack in the facade that let in some kind of difficulty. Because the Yud is again, it's just this one tiny thing, this one tiny point, but out of which all the universe is created. So it's like a seed, it's like a sperm, just like a little tiny dot or something, but it means hand, and it represents Yad, means hand, and it represents action in the world. So to do, to make, to help, some kind of handiwork, perhaps artisanship. And it is the first letter of the divine name, so it is a very holy letter in Hebrew. It represents the seeds of all creation, and again, that one point out of which the divine created all things. And I would say every letter has got yuds in it. Every letter is made up of a bunch of yuds, the same way the whole universe is made up of atoms. It's the number 10 in Gematria, so it has that ultimate manifestation of 1, the 1 times 10, and so the oneness of the divine. But it also speaks to the 10 commandments and the 10 plagues and the 10 sephirot, lots of 10s in the Torah. It is one of the 12 single letters in the Sefer Yetzirah, and it corresponds to the foundation of sexuality and to the tribe of Gad, who is the ancient Semitic god of luck. So there's something lucky about it, but again, in the position that we're talking about in the past, and in conjunction with this card, it seems to me it's just that one little irritating thing that came along that caused the beginning of a problem, whatever it might be in the past. I would say the Yud corresponds to the traditional tarot card, the Fool, because it is that seed, that beginning, that proto, before anyone starts off. So again, maybe some kind of foolishness that goes with this in regards to this card of the Kakkiainen, which is, this pesky little guys. And we're in the current position of Ein, and Ein is said to be an eye, and it's representative of being able to see, maybe being able to see more clearly now that we're out of whatever the present situation, out of the past here, of this, just this beginning that we didn't know what we were looking at, and now we've got this ability to see things more clearly. It is the foundation of laughter in the Sefer Yetzirah. So like these, it's funny because these little guys in the car, they're laughing it up, rah rah rah, ha 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 ha. So it has something to do with being able to see it, but also laughing at it. So maybe the ability to laugh at one's own foibles, to be able to say, oh, we've got these pesky little guys and we just need to laugh at them, laugh with them, perhaps, as things are getting a little convoluted right now. It is the number 70 in the Gematria, so it's about the ultimate manifestation of some kind of completion. 7 being the number of days of creation, which represents the end of creation. So 10 times that is this ultimate manifestation of something coming to an end. So something big is coming to an end, or we're near the end of that thing. And it is also for me, I think it corresponds to the tarot card, the Magician, because we have that ability to see, because there is this this illumination that comes with it, and again the eye being able to see what's going to happen, or what's happening now, and also being watched over by the divine. So maybe there's some sort of magic to it. 7 is a very magical number, and 10 times 7 would be a lot of magic going on there. So we've got some kind of magic. We have some kind of authority or power here to use our vision, to use our sight, and to trust that we're being watched over by the divine as we are wrestling with our Kakkiainen, and laughing at them and laughing with them, and they're laughing at us. So if we can get that laughter under control, or at least laugh, if we can't beat them, laugh with them, is what's going on right now. Is just kind of looking at the situation and saying, well, that's what's happening. We're going to laugh it off. And that brings us to the future, which is the letter Mem. And the letter Mem is that letter that corresponds to water. It's about Mayim Haim, the waters of life. And Mem is one of the mother letters. There are 3 mother letters, which are the letters that are about creation. So Mem is about water. There's also Aleph, which is air, and Shin, which is fire. Mem is that middle one. It is the water. It's in the center of the alphabet. It is about a womb. You can see that it looks like a container with a small opening near the bottom left there, and so it has to do with like a womb, the concept of gestation, the amniotic fluid, and even a mikvah, something that we might need to cleanse ourselves to get through this. So we're giving birth to something, we're gestating something. It is the number 40 in Gematria, so it has to do with the 40 weeks of gestation in the human body. But it also has to do with the winter. It has to do with the cold season, the wet season here in this, at least in this hemisphere. That's what we're happening now. We're having this wet season of the cold wetness, and Mem corresponds to that time right now. You got this cold, dark, wet time that is like the deep. It's like this unknown ocean that we're entering into of weather, and so it is corresponding to the waters of life, but those waters can also be, can be overpowering sometimes. They can be, water is got both the ability to create and destroy, so we have to respect its power. It is, like I said, one of the 3 letters, mother letters, It is this, corresponds to the belly in the body. Again, so down where our womb is, and also where the bones of our ancestors go. Like in the Torah, it talks about the Yosef in Egypt. His bones were sunk into the Nile until it was time for the Hebrews to leave Egypt. So it's where the bones go. And similarly, in the Kalevala, we have the river of Tuonela, where the dead go when they die. So the correspondence is there. I see it as being corresponding to the High Priestess in the traditional tarot, because it is this mother letter of water and mystery on some level too. The moon connection with water, how the moon draws the tides in and out. So again, it has to do with cleansing too, because water is used in the mikvah and is used in cleansing of all kinds of things in our tradition. So perhaps in order to get rid of our Kakkiainen, we need to do some water ritual here, because we've had this small breach perhaps in our boundaries about where we accidentally perhaps paused and let a small argument or an old habit of thought get inside of us and start to mess things up. And we're at this point right now where we can kind of see what's happening, that we can laugh at it as these guys are laughing at us. We recognize how futile it is to continue these arguments and let them rage out of control, let them grow and collect more of these little sticky guys. And so what we have coming up at our future is this cleansing that needs to happen, some kind of birth. We've got this period of gestation where maybe we need to look deep into the dark waters and discover where it is we've let that leak come in here, and plug that up in some way, or to express our emotions freely, so that we can be rid of these little guys who are pestering us, and then maybe take some mikvah, do something that will help us to clean this out and clear it up, so that we don't have these little sticky guys stuck to us anymore, because they are pests, they are rascals, they are unnecessary for us. They have, it's important to take a constructive attitude toward minor setbacks and conflicts, to not be overly sensitive to a thing or harbor bitter thoughts or guilt or old grudges. It's best to come out and talk about what's bothering you, so that we can clean this up and not have it turn into a bigger problem than it is. So it is important to clear them out. We can do that with just talking to them or talking about them and saying, this is recognizing, seeing what's going on, and then asking them to leave. Just saying, I need you to clear out. I'm going to cleanse myself of this little negativity that's being irritable right now. This little stone in our shoe, this little thorn in our side, and get that cleaned up and rid ourselves of these little pestering Kakkiainens. So for those of you who chose the little pests today, this has been your reading. I hope you are able to see what's going on, laugh a little bit at yourself, and clean that up so that you don't have to handle that anymore. And for those of you who chose Kakkiainen, that's been your reading. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you here next time.